Oh, well, we'll get it figured
Small
out.
group again.
A big agenda, a small group and a big agenda.
I forget, is this on again? Yeah, it is. Yep, okay. See how it goes. Don't say thanks, so you see.
You're great. You have enough experience.
Yeah, it's been,
You are a leader, Dave.
we'll see.
Long, David.
Just moving on. And they're gonna do roll call this time instead of signing it, so that's new, I think.
Okay,
Just gonna call out our names and.
okay.
See you.
Yeah, and then just a reminder for everyone.
Test.
Perfect. Just a reminder for everybody, if you guys can make sure to just leave your microphones on.
It's only been 3
And then
months.
to speak into the microphone so that even if we can't hear stuff, it should pick it up. Push your middle 3 buttons right there. There
Push
you
the
go.
middle
Yep.
3 buttons so all the microphones are live.
Well, there should be no red light on the 3 microphones, or on the 3 dots. And then if you just leave them, as long as you're not talking, it won't pick anything up.
Testing.
There you go. Yep.
And then shut our phones off.
Yes.
Oh, but if I use that to read the agenda?
I just mean the volume.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Sorry, I said that wrong.
That's okay.
Okay. We're going to try and keep this meeting at the time frame. I know we're looking at a snowstorm tonight, but I think we should be able to have about 15 minutes, Crystal, if that works. Okay?
All right, so go ahead and call the meeting to order of the Parks Advisory Board for Tuesday, February 28th. And recognition, roll call first.
Thanks. James Hand. David Marquardt.
Here.
Lindsay Schoenack.
Here.
Valerie Ritland.
Here.
Sebastian McDougall. Larry Seljevold.
Here.
And that is it.
All right, any recognitions? Nothing for there. We'll go on to agenda amendments for number 3. And Holly,
I do have an agenda amendment. I need to move the order of what's on our agenda around. I need to move item 6E to 6C to be, we need to discuss the exercise mat prior to our spend plan, because the money would come out of the spend plan. So we can vote after, but I'm just going to move those 2 around. Does it take a vote to move it? No vote, I guess.
we need a vote to move it?
No.
No, I don't think so. Okay. Any other changes? All right. We'll accept that then for the agenda and approval of the minutes from November 29th. When you make a motion, if you could please say your name for the recorder would be great. So if you're making a second or making the motion to approve.
This is Valerie. I move to approve the minutes.
This is Lindsay, and I second.
Any discussion from the November 29th minutes? Any discussion? All right, all those approve signifying by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any citizens to be heard? Not seeing any, so we'll move on to number 6. And business, so approval of park ordinance changes. Holly?
I think we're coming down to, I know we talk about this at about every meeting for the last year, but we're getting down to where now we would hand this over to the city attorney and some of those after our discussion tonight. So I just want to run through quickly what we would vote on and what our recommendations would be, so that it would be one vote to accept that, or if you make changes, that's great, then the motion just has to be a little different. But based on park hours, we've talked about this one, and the consensus seems to be dawn to 10 p.m. And of course, that has about a $1,500 fiduciary note to it with changing all of the signage in the parks. Other cities we've researched, some say 6 a.m., but a majority do say dawn, and ours says 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So intoxicating liquor, this one would not be included in what we're recommending for changes because the Minnesota State Legislature, as we mentioned previously, controls this. And at this point, it is 3-2 liquor. And the only way to make changes to those rules is to lobby the legislature. We have visited with adult softball and some of those folks, and they do not want to do that. So we will, our recommendation is to leave it as is until which time the legislature changes. Or if you so desire, you can let me know and we can take it to become possibly a legislative priority for the city at another time. That would be the other option. Right now, the legislative priorities for the city are set and what we're lobbying on, and this is not one of them. Section 11E is the dog park rules. There was one change that was recommended, and that was to lower the age of children being allowed in there from 12 to be with adult supervision. And after a lot of research in this area, I am recommending that we don't make that change due to the effects of different people we've talked to. They get very nervous when kids are in the dog park. They're worried their dog's going to do something. Is that 12-year-old old enough to manage the dog and themselves, and it affects other owners that might be in there. With adult supervision, that's always subject to, these aren't very well monitored, so I would worry about that. The other recommendation is that there was questions about what is a dangerous dog. And I have included in your materials the city ordinance that identifies through the police department what a dangerous dog is. And it's a classification given after having to go through a process with the police department. They've bit somebody, or, the criteria is in your packet. So I would suggest that we would change that language a little bit so people know. The people who do have a dog that has been labeled or gone through the process and is dangerous by that label do know. Obviously, they've received notice and so forth. So to change the signs at the dog park, it's around $500. For both signs would need to be changed if we were to do more clarification on the dangerous dog ordinance. Identifying, put the ordinance number next to it. That way they know it's an official designation. Roller skates, rollerblades, this needs to be updated. We need to clean up outdated language. It talks about removing, which I crossed out in your materials, is notes that you can't be in the center mall, very specific information. I think when roller boards first came out, skateboards first came out, people had a nervousness that this activity was going to be rampant all over. But I would like to recommend that we limit it, make an ordinance that foot scooters and so forth, they are limited inside what we would designate as our business district to being either on road, which isn't the best case, but being on sidewalks all over can really be cumbersome also. And also add a whole separate ordinance on electric bicycles and motorized foot scooters. They're already on our bike paths. The police have not wanted to, people call and ask about it all the time, but we would like to put the ordinance in as written that I've given you that would limit the speed to 15 miles an hour and put signage out that says they need to stay to the right and so forth, just like any other person or walker or whatever on the bike path. But that in regards to these, they would not be able to be in the business district on the sidewalks. The last one is the aquatics and pools ordinance. Recommendation there is I sent this one to the county health inspector, and it's a cleanup ordinance for us because the city used to license all pools in Moorhead, and we no longer do that. So, but we do have to follow the code from the county, and the city has a code. So building codes has to let people know what the rules are to follow it, but we are not the licensing department, and we're not the penalty department. So it's cleaning that ordinance up. I have talked to Kent Severson over at the county, and he believes the ordinance changed as submitted to you meets their recommendation, and he's just fine with that ordinance. So we talked about the process for these ordinance changes. Some of them are definitely in need of changing. So there's the cost to change the dog park signs of $500 for the 2 new signs, and then an estimated $3,000 to put up signs along the river corridor, which would talk about rules staying to the right and a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. Other costs to change at the dog park, as I mentioned, and then there needs to be 2 readings at City Council and then printing in the official newspaper, which is the extra, so the cost of that. So the recommendation, I guess, or the motion, I need to send these for final tuning of the language to city attorney, prosecutor's office, and the police have been briefed, but they want to see the final language. And I don't have that until you guys approve what you'd like to see as your final language. So I guess I would be looking for a motion on how to proceed, and with what I presented.
So we need a motion first, and then we can have discussion after that. So do we have a motion to approve the list that Holly just?
Oldfield, I'll make the motion.
Larry has a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Lindsay, I'll second.
All right, discussion? Any questions? Larry?
Can I ask, so where are you putting the signs for the bikes and the rollerblades?
Those the intended thing would be up by, up on the river corridor bike paths
Okay.
would be our start.
Larry?
You know, on the parks opening, like, you know, I live close to River Oaks Point, and 10 o'clock in the summers, there's still light. I mean, it's basically pretty late, but there's complaints about cars there in the winter, you know, at dark, but I mean, they can be there till 10 o'clock. Well, I mean, there's no barrier to stop them from going in there anyway, but I mean, so it seems to me like, you know, once it gets dark, people are suspicious of what's happening down there. And if we have a thing that says at dusk, you're not supposed to be down there, that's, even though it may be common in other cities to say 10 o'clock, it's dark in the winter at, you know.
And the reason that we didn't go for the dawn to dusk is because we do have some activities that, you know, we do evening cross-country ski rental with headlights. We do some things that are our trail walk, some special events that are out during the evening still. So we didn't want to be breaking our own rules and have to be done at 4:30 in the winter with some of those activities. So we just thought that 10 o'clock still allowed for, you know, that we got to close at 10. And all of the ordinance, as we remember, have to be enforceable. So this does allow people back into areas until 10 o'clock in the winter. That is very dark. I know what you're saying, Larry.
Other questions? My only question is, so if the signs are up for like the motorized 15 mile an hour out in the parks, how does somebody, if someone's not following that rule, who's going to govern that, and who's going to, if it's a report that comes in and then, I mean, it's already passed, and how is that going to be really enforced?
It allows, the police officers are our enforcement. So it allows them, and they do have some police officers who use their bicycles. So it allows them to enforce that 15 mile an hour. It also talks about the speed and the size of that motorized vehicle. Like, it gives a good description of what is an e-bike and what is an e-scooter, and it can't exceed a certain engine level. But some of those go 40 miles an hour. But some people can pedal that too. So I mean, we patterned this ordinance after Duluth. So that's kind of where we're at for right now on a recommendation.
So there are police that would be out there then potentially looking at stuff, so it's not just a sign that's out there which would never be enforced.
There are police who could do something about it. They also actually do drive close, especially down here. They'll drive on the bike paths to, if they get a report, or it just gives some teeth to it if they have some problem. We have had electric scooters out by 20th and Horizon Shores in different places that the police have gotten. They've talked to them, and I think they gave them a ticket.
Little miniature radar gun.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's why we need to go to the language might change here some based on the prosecutors and the attorney and the police. But it gives them something to enforce.
This $3,000 includes the price of the park signs that will change the time?
No, and that 3,000 is really a rough estimate. How many miles of bike paths do we have, guys? 16 on the river corridor alone? And then we have quite a few throughout town in different spots, longer runs. So we would need to, think that would be, some of those areas may be included also. Out by Blue Stem, some of those that are kind of more wide open.
So what is the cost for the changing of the signs with the new times?
I think we had that one at, I think it's on the front, $1,500.
Thank you.
That included staff time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I would like to see what you guys think about the 12-year-olds in the dog park. Are you guys okay with leaving it, or?
I agree with that.
Okay. Then the motion could be that we accept them as recommended, as written.
So that was, I think, was that originally the motion? So we're good there?
I believe
All right.
so.
All right. So if there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. So all those in approve of the motion as stated with Holly's recommendations, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we'll go on to business item B for planting restoration areas for 2023 presentation. And who's introducing? Any?
Steve, do you want to set it
Steve?
up some?
Yeah, I'll just tee it up here.
All right, thank you.
So what you're going to hear is kind of an overall look back of what we've done leading up to last year, what we're in the process or what got started last year, and looking ahead what areas that we're planning for possible expansion of pollinator and natural plantings, riverfront restoration, things of that nature. So it's kind of informational and also looking for approval of looking forward.
Okay. All right. And looks like we have Crystal presenting today. So thank you for coming and sharing today. And the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, thank you everyone for having me here today. I'm very excited to talk about all the hard work that we've been up to over at in our open spaces and parks and related to sustainability. All right. So I just want to give a little bit of background and context of why these initiatives are so important. So first of all, we are a Green Step city. We made it to Green Step 5 status last year. And in order to maintain our Green Step 5 status, we need to keep continuing to improve on all of the data and the metrics that we're looking at. We need to keep on, working towards greater and greater sustainability. We also have our new comprehensive plan, which sustainability is a major component of. Pollinator plantings are specifically mentioned in our comprehensive plan. We are also a Mayor's Monarch Pledge signatory. So with that, we kind of pledge like actions every year and, different initiatives to help improve habitat for pollinators. And in order to do these things, we've been partnering with a few different organizations in the community and in the state. So we've been a big member with Resilient Moorhead. We've also worked a lot with Audubon Dakota and worked with Wildlife Forever and the United Prairie Foundation. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the best practices that are highlighted in Green Step cities as far as pollinator plantings and turf. So it is mentioned in kind of 2 different areas to kind of help protect wildlife through habitat restoration, and also to encourage like native landscaping and to help promote pollinator and monarch safe policies. And here's some of our plants actually from some of our pollinator beds over by Public Works. And our Moorhead Comprehensive Plan says one of our goals is to build long-lasting, innovative, and ecologically friendly parks. And it's even mentioned to work with Audubon Dakota to try to get more no-mow species throughout the city and to continue to incorporate pollinator-friendly landscapes. So I'll just briefly speak a little bit about some of the projects I've been involved with. So one of the first projects I worked with the city was this awesome food forest. It was a Resilient Moorhead initiative, and we worked a lot with our forestry division. So the forestry division did a lot of prep work, and then we partnered with Resilient Moorhead and did the planning, and Riverkeepers assisted with getting the volunteers at this event. We had like 70 people show up. It was amazing. And we have 70 apple trees, 15 plum trees, and 15 pear trees, and it's maintained by forestry still. And then our Urban Woods and Prairies Initiative has been something in place since 2017, and they've got 10 different sites totaling over 300 acres of either natural plantings or forest enhancements. And you can see the map here kind of shows where all those plantings are. And moving forward, a big priority for us will be to be like looking at those sites that we currently have and kind of looking at the maintenance needs. What do we need to put in to help increase our species diversity and really make them really gorgeous open areas for us to enjoy. So here we were discussing a few sites that could be potentially new sites added into Urban Woods and Prairies. So this is an area just north of I-94. So this would be something like if we could get funding, we could probably try to convert this into some kind of pollinator kind of restoration type of area. This here area, this is one, so in the yellow is an area that has already been in the Urban Woods and Prairies Initiative program, and we want to do some enhancement of this site. So we'll be assessing this a little bit more carefully with Audubon Dakota this spring, kind of seeing what comes up, what do we need to do, and create like a good plan moving forward. We definitely want to increase the species diversity at this site. And then the areas in green are potential spots that could be restored into some kind of prairie or pollinator planting, but we still have to do a little bit more discussion on these areas too.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can you tell them where each of these locations are?
Yes.
Like the other one, is that on the other side of Horn Park?
Let's see.
The first one.
Oh, shoot, I'm going back.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, so let's see. This would be just north of I-94. Open area.
Then the next one is where?
This is our Public Works maintenance facility. So this is like the road, it's 15th Avenue North, and then you head west, and then it becomes 12th Avenue North in Fargo, if that sort of helps. So this new area would just be north of the Public Works building. And kind of
Is that currently where the dam is?
Let's see. Yeah.
Dam's right in the middle of
It's
the
the toll bridge, right? Is that where the
Yes.
toll bridge road?
Yep,
Bridge.
exactly.
That's St. Francis de Sales, the big building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And then here we have a few more sites. So this one would be, what is this, Viking Ship Park? This is just like north of here. So there is a site here currently, and so we're proposing to add on to that site and then also enhance that site that's there. And then this one to the right would be over at River Oaks Point. So one of the areas we were sort of discussing a little bit, like, because there's a lot of trees, and maybe we do more of a forest understory type of planting, and maybe look at like woodland sedges and other type of woodland plants that could be really cool. And like I've heard there's trails in there, like kind of do some cool things with the trails and make it just pretty and something good for wildlife too. And then I'll talk a little bit more about what we did last summer. So this youth environmental stewards gardens were a really neat project to collaborate with Concordia on. So this was Resilient Moorhead grant funded. Sydney Stock is pictured here in the middle. So she led these workshops for the youth that lived in these areas. And I should have attached maps for where these plantings ended up going, but they were at Arrowhead, Bennett, and Queens Park. So you can see in this picture where the Queens Park planting went. And these were super exciting. The kids just love these. They were so excited to help put the plants in. I would go out there to water every now and then. The kids would come out and they want to talk and ask how the plants were doing, and if they've seen a butterfly. It was really amazing. So the energy around this project was awesome, and we did try to plant these things so that it could be as easy to mow around them as possible. So we really tried to make that a big priority. Like in the Arrowhead Park, there's an area where it's like too narrow to actually get a lawnmower through. So we planted that area. So trying to alleviate, some of the issues that may happen for our mowing crew. And here's for our Prairie City USA plantings. So we did 2 different sites. These were a partnership with Wildlife Forever and United Prairie Foundation. We got a Conservation Partners Legacy grant to pay for these. And the plugs were paid for by the Resilient Moorhead Bush Foundation Community Innovation Grant. So here are the planting sites up at MB Johnson. So the area with the dotted or the purple dots, that's ultimately where all the new prairie restoration will be occurring. The area with the black lines are where we put plugs. And the reason that we went with plugs are to kind of give like a border of nicer plants right away. So a lot of these plants were like 1 or 2 years old, and they actually got to be about 2 feet tall by the end of the season, and we didn't even plant these until July. So, the idea is to like kind of make it look really nice, because the rest of it that's in purple here, we're gonna have to spray and then seed. So it's gonna take longer for those plants to start looking nice. So it's gonna take some patience, but it'll pay off in a couple of years. So here's an example of what those plants ended up looking like. This is up at MB Johnson. So this is in front of the little stormwater pond, kind of by that small shelter. And then the bottom picture is on that entryway going into MB Johnson. So you can kind of see the area that got sprayed in preparation for the seeding for the spring, and then that little border planting. And then here's Southside Regional, and I don't have a picture of that today, but you can see like the rough area that we're going to be spraying and then planting, putting into seed, and then that plug border along that northwest edge. And the cool thing here too is we actually had monarch caterpillars at the site 6 weeks after planting. So we had a very fast return for wildlife. And then a little bit about maintenance here. So for the first 3 years of our CPL grant, we're going to get some assistance from the United Prairie Foundation. They'll be spot spraying weeds. And we can also help them by mowing these plantings to a height of 8 inches. That's going to keep like some of our unwanted plants, kind of keep them down, keep them from going to seed, kind of giving those prairie plants time to establish, because they really work on the root systems for the first few years. So they're not going to be like popping above ground as much in that initial period. So just our main job in these first few years is just to kind of keep everything else at bay, give that our native plants opportunity to establish, and then we won't have to work so hard. And then Wildlife Forever will assist with creating a management plan at the end of the grant period. So these established diverse prairie plantings will be able to compete against weeds if we're able to maintain them properly. They need a little bit of help. We'll need to do things like, kind of burn them every now and then, or graze them. That's an idea that's being floated for the Oakport Prairie. Or in areas where we really can't do a burn, we can do at least an annual mowing, because the idea is you want to get the thatch out of there, kind of that buildup of plant material. It can kind of choke out some of the plants, and you'll reduce your plant diversity, and it'll, wreck your ecological function of your prairie. And then another project I've been working quite a bit on is buckthorn management. So just a very brief overview of buckthorn is it was an ornamental plant introduced from Europe in the mid-1800s. It escaped cultivation. I think it was the 1930s. It was banned from sales. But by then it had already spread quite aggressively, and it's pretty ubiquitous throughout Minnesota. Unfortunately, it's listed as a restricted noxious weed, and it's harmful for the ecosystem in several ways. So one, it outcompetes our native plants, and native plants are very important because the local plants and animals that we have here depend on the native plants in order to survive. Animals aren't always generalists. They sometimes need a very specific plant or set of plants in order to thrive. So when we have an invasive species like this, it chokes out everything that our actual native plants really need, or native animals need, and you're left with very generalist species. So to help us bring back diversity in our wildlife, we need to bring back diversity in our plant wildlife, in our plant life. The berries are actually harmful to wildlife. They actually act as a laxative to birds, so the birds can't even get nutrients through buckthorn berries. And so obviously this would make things like rearing young much more difficult for birds. And then too, that helps the tree spread more quickly throughout the landscape also. And another huge negative to buckthorn is that it's actually the only overwinter host of the soybean aphid, which our farmers then have to deal with in the summertime. And it's also the host for crown rust fungus. So here's the areas that we've been working on. So in the springtime, we worked at Gooseberry with forestry. So forestry has assisted us with getting the initial cut down. We also had some amazing volunteers come out and help us pull stems out of the woods. And then forestry went back with a log loader and then picked up the piles of stems, basically. So between MB Johnson and Gooseberry Park, we have a little over an acre that we've reclaimed from buckthorn infestation, but we have a lot more to go, and we're kind of working on a plan for that. And here's our amazing volunteers, and just to give you, and it's really hard to show you the full scope of just how much buckthorn they pulled out of the woods. And I was so impressed with, both of these events. And then with the last event that we did in October, our volunteers were going down the hill, like at MB Johnson Park, at that peninsula, pulling it up the hill, pulling it out. And I can't even really show you how much buckthorn was out there. I attempted to give, a glimpse of what it was, but the volunteers worked so hard, and I was very proud to be a part of that movement. And we hosted that October event with Audubon Dakota too. They were very helpful. So in conclusion, we're investing a lot of time and effort to help make our parks and public spaces amenities for recreation as well as ecological assets. And we're trying to design them with multi-uses so that we can free up resources for mowing in areas where we really want those areas mowed. And then we can set aside other areas that, we don't need to have it mowed like turf grass necessarily. And then it acts as also pollinator habitat also. Reduces our mowing and chemical treatment needs, protects, so prairie is actually our most endangered ecosystem in this country. And then in Minnesota, about 1% of our original prairies still exist. So us trying to put in more prairie habitat really does have a really big impact in helping the species that depend on prairie specifically. And buckthorn removal will continue to help us improve the ecological function of our river corridor, helps provide access to nature for everyone, regardless of their ability to travel. And we can employ outreach efforts to increase appreciation for native plants, pollinators, and songbirds. Any questions?
Is there more buckthorn that you're going to be removing?
There's a ton of buckthorn still out there. I think MB Johnson has around 24 acres. Mm-hmm.
So
Go ahead.
sorry, can you address, kind of, you said that the Wildlife Forever will create a management plan at the end of the grant period for maintenance.
Yes.
What might that look like, and as we continue planting more sites, is that something, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think largely that's going to look like setting up some kind of burn schedule in the areas that we can burn, or like a grazing schedule or a mowing schedule. So like I said, like in place of a burn, you really should be looking at mowing at least annually, to get that thatch out of there. And then, maybe doing some spot spraying as needed. And then, like at some of the other sites we've been talking about, possibly introducing a few more species back into them. If during the establishment period, some of the species didn't really make it, they didn't do well, or, if we need to kind of change up the species composition to help it be a more resilient planting, I think that's probably going to be what they'd be including.
So the management plan isn't that they would do it, it's giving direction for the city staff.
Yes, they would be assisting us through the grant period, and then after that, we would have to take the lead on maintenance after that.
Do you know how many acres we have in now, and then what you're proposing for 2023?
Yeah, so currently, like urban woods and prairies, like I said, it's about 308 acres. Not all of that's prairie, so I could get those numbers for you. And then total, let's see, I did not add up what those areas are, like proposed. So the CPL plantings, that's total about 14 acres between MB Johnson and Southside Regional. And then, so this is about 4, 5, so we can call that 6. And we can roughly say 7 on that. So about an additional 8 acres between those 3 sites that we're considering.
I was wondering about the fruit tree survival rate. Are they all looking good, and how long before they start to produce fruit?
Yeah, they have done very well. We replaced some of them, and luckily the company that Trent, our forester, ordered through, they sent us extras. So we actually had a few extras to replace some of the ones that died the following year. And we did get some trees donated to us by the West Central Initiative also. So we got 2 more trees to replace some of the ones that died. But I don't know firm numbers that have died, but its survival rate's been very good. And production, I think you could probably look at maybe 3 years. The berry plants are producing already. So if you like aronia, there's tons of aronia that are there, and they've been amazing. The honey berries are something I'm really looking forward to. I haven't seen a ton of those producing yet, but they're supposed to be really delicious. So once those do get going, they'll be fun.
Samples next meeting?
Yeah, maybe, right?
A little early, yeah.
Yeah. The trees will take longer to get established.
Sure.
For the environmental gardens that were in the parks, that maintenance as well for weeds and things, how's that being taken care of right now?
We're kind of in discussions with Audubon Dakota about that right now. So we're sort of partnering with them, kind of figuring out how to tackle maintenance from here on out. So I think that one we're still basically working on the exact details of that. Mhm.
I have, great concern on that because we can discuss that if the motion comes through, but the weeds that are already in our parks is a huge concern for me.
Yes.
And any staff time taken away to add more to that is very concerning to me because we can't take care of right now. My wife and I have spent several hours in Horizon Park to get that somewhat decent, and to have more parks and more acreage with more weeds, it's hard for me to support that. So that's my big concern is adding this to, especially like the signs area where it's more in the public area and not being maintained is definitely a concern for me. And then for the grazing part, is that legal in the city of Moorhead to be grazing what I assume goat, sheep, something like that?
It would be sheep. So there was some language amended in the ordinance, and that has been something that our planning department has been very active with. So I think it's called like a conditional permit, and that would be for the Oakport site. So that's something that's still in progress being, kind of worked on. And then I wanted to return to with the concern with the weeds. So like I was saying, if we can put just the right amount of maintenance into these sites to really make them healthy and ecologically diverse, we really should not be dealing with weeds. So by no means, I don't want weeds in these areas either. I want them to be really pretty. Like, this site, I visited at Crystal Cave State Park in Wisconsin, and I was like, oh my God, yes, this is what we want. We don't want areas with thistle. So, I think it's kind of that sweet spot, like put the right amount of maintenance in, and whether we work with, contractors to assist with some of that, how much do we do to make these really looking nice? I think we're still working on that aspect of it. But yeah, we definitely want them looking really great. Keep them weed free. And then we can allow our staff to work on other areas that do need more, more of that mowing, more of the weed maintenance. So trying to make it so that it's less resources in the long run is the goal.
The parks around me too are it's lilies, things that grow back nicely, and it was great for the first few years we lived there, but over time it just, even though it was established really nice to begin with, it doesn't last for thing. So back to the grazing. So then fencing and those things, who's responsible for that? Because obviously they're not going to be just roaming around. So how does that fencing work?
They're going to be working with a private entity with the grazing part of it. So I think that private contractor is going to be working with the sheep primarily, and sounds like from the plan they'll be purchasing fence with some kind of like grant funding or other funding that we can attain. And the fence will be out there, bring the sheep in when we need them to go through and clean everything out, take them out when they're done.
So then you have a farmer that you already have sheep with, or are we buying sheep?
Yeah, they're working with a farmer.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions, Larry?
This is a tie-in. It's kind of a heads up for Crystal, Steve, Holly. Is that I've been talking with the local a guy with the local beekeepers association, and they have a test site over in Fargo that you can go there and learn. And this guy's very excited about the idea of that if we could get a test site in Moorhead, And so they don't meet till March. That's their first meeting. And it would be like maybe pick spots on a map and say, okay, you can put your stuff here. And
So-
that's just all a heads up, but I think it ties into this, so.
Oh yeah, no, that sounds cool. And so the test site, what would we be testing? Like bee
Just have the hives
species
there,
or?
and that would be, leave them there and see, it's like,
That's cool. Yeah.
so anyway, they want to meet, and these are the people who probably would meet with them, so and it kind of ties into this.
Yeah, totally. That'd
Yep.
be really fun.
Other discussion? Any other discussion?
I think you're doing a great job bringing the sustainability of Onward Moorhead to life.
Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Just if I could comment, I did get a couple calls about how much more we're planning to do at MB. So, how much there's that kind of that weighing of it. Is all of what you show on the map what's done currently? So
Here.
10 acres more?
So it's everything in the purple dotted or areas will be ultimately converted into prairie, and it is a lot. So the areas that we put into plugs, I can't remember off the top of my head quite what the square footage on that was, but yeah, it will be a very large area. However, when I was going out here and kind of, looking at the site and kind of plotting out the lines and everything for them to spray to prepare, I did notice the bicycle paths and, just different like walking paths and things. So like along the north side, I did leave some space so that, folks can still go bicycling through that area. So, trying to keep with that spirit of like having it for everybody and, enhance what we have and not.
Some of the calls were the cross-country group, wondering, I just have a concern that the whole green space not be taken over.
Yeah.
So
I don't think these prairie plantings would take away the ability to put the cross-country ski paths through there.
Yeah, this was, cross-country runners.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I've
They
same
run
there.
through the whole area there.
Yeah, we mow, correct me when I'm wrong, Mike, but we mow areas for the running path that need mowing, don't we? Prior to their meets?
But this. Not really though. Yeah. Yeah, they could. Yeah, so this is really taking up established turf, spraying it, and just so you guys know what it is.
For spraying, then also, I know we have some guidelines for spraying, so how does that affect what they're spraying to what we are kind of tying it together about limitations of what we spray, how much, and those things, and how often? Is that in compliance with what we've already agreed to, or how does that work?
Other than the initial kill, for lack of a better term,
Okay.
there won't be anything that would not follow our other guidelines of spot spraying and the ability to keep the thistle at bay.
So if this gets approved tonight, there's another big kill coming. Is that what I'm hearing? Or another group that'll be 30 acres, is that what?
Well,
Or 10 acres, 10 acres.
these areas did get sprayed one time at the end of the year
Okay.
last year. But we can work with, I know I did talk to one coach and kind of gave him a heads up about this. But yeah, we can talk about, routes and things. I know when I was a cross-country runner back at home, we did run through a prairie area too where we mowed it, and it was kind of fun because it gives it more things to look at as you're running. So we can work with those groups and kind of discuss planning going forward. And
So it's my understanding that we're making a motion tonight to potentially expand the process, but it's already been sprayed, so it's already
so
done?
these areas are, so this MB Johnson and Southside are already, like, that process has already started. So like the new areas would be these ones here.
So it's already been sprayed, it's already been approved from last time then? Okay.
And these are all part of what was approved by council for the grant?
Correct.
Yep,
Yep.
okay.
All the tan spots were the ones that were approved by the city council, correct?
Yeah, they're past projects or ones that are in process.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, the tan ones here. Yeah, like I think some of this was passed back in like 2017.
Like MJ, we go back to that site where it's going to be purple. That's already tan. Those purple dots in it.
Yep.
So that's already been approved, all those purple dotted areas?
Yeah, that was approved last year. The MB Johnson and the Southside Regional.
That's what was the first phase kind of all that.
Right.
So that's what's been killed so far. Okay.
So the new spots are just the pictures by the toll road and
River
the
Oaks.
94
Yep.
bridge, other side of Horn and River Oaks. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And in your packet, there's also 8 reforest the red spots that we didn't include in this presentation, but they're potential riverfront restoration projects with river keepers.
Other discussion? So I believe we're looking for a motion to support the planting of is it only informational, or are we looking for a motion to approve this going forward?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, the suggested motion would be to receive information regarding past prairie restoration projects, including those started in '22, and also approve the planned planting restoration and reforestation areas to be included in 2023 and other future grant applications.
Make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it. This is Valerie.
Any discussion? My only discussion is I'll reiterate what I said before. I think I'm not sure the plan's in place yet for complete maintenance after we're done. And I know the concern I have personally with the way our mowing's been taken care of and the weeds that are in our parks right now. So I personally vote no for it, because I think it's too much too fast. And I'll just leave it at that. I guess I'll add also, I think it's going to be added time for our staff that we can't find now, and for mowers and for everything else. And I understand it's going to take away some grass and less mowing potentially in the long run maybe. But as of short term, I think it's going to be way more time for our staff that we don't have. And without proper maintenance of what we currently have, I think it's too much to add to our load right now. Larry?
I would think that when I look in the map and the things that you're showing new and enhanced, and these are all just kind of areas that are on the fringe of forest or riparian areas, and that we're just kind of enhancing that, which I see then as taking away time to mow and so on. And I think one of the things that we really got to look at is that I think there needs to be a separation from a lot of this green space, like on the other side of the dike, and city parks. Like, I think your point is you get to a city park and you want it to look almost like a golf course. And you don't want a lot of weeds there. You want you want to say good presentation, borrow from the food industry. But these other areas, I mean, I think it's enhancement when we return them back to as close to native as we can get, or trees and so on, because then it's like it's on the other side of a dike. It's kind of wilderness anyway, and then that frees up area that you don't have to mow, that you can spend more time on the parks and make maybe our city parks, the neighborhood parks, a little greener, you know.
And I'm not sure if I can still add or not. I can still comment? Okay. And I don't know if I really made this a big enough of a point, but we are also seeking out grant funding for these things too. So, it's not necessarily just our own resources, but, if we can seek out grant funding to also assist with some of this effort too, there are grants available. So.
Yeah, I would, if the grants were in place and it's guaranteed, not added time to our staff, I would be in support of it. And I think too, if it's other side of the dike, like you mentioned, Larry, and it's not any of our time, but the way it sounds at this point, it's could be potentially sometime in a couple of years that could be city time, and if not now. So, but I appreciate the input too. Any other discussion topics or anything? Any other discussion? All right, so we have a motion, and if you approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Aye, I do. And I'm not sure how that works, so if I can do it as I'm speaking, but that was. So, motion carries 3-1, I believe, so we're good with that one.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, I think we're on to, we need to, Holly, is this where you need to change up some things?
It is. The item on the National Fitness Campaign, the fitness court, it's pretty straightforward. I don't want to take a lot of time talking about it. There is a grant through Blue Cross Blue Shield that would allow for us to get the artwork free and also a $50,000 reduction in the price of this fitness court. The company has visited with a number of us. Although it's very cool, there's no new money set aside to pay for it, even with the grant, because it would still be $150,000. I did check, and based on you guys' recommendation, I thought we should at least, if you have questions about the fitness court, I sure can answer them. But I think it would have to come out of the spend plan. What I've been told, we have $250 a year and then our parkland dedication. So would we pull money from that? We could put it in for a 2024 capital improvement request for next year. We have done our research to try and add some areas that it might go in. You know, they really push for it to be in the downtown area. The salesmen think we need one every 15 miles, or 15, it wasn't 15 miles, it was 15 blocks or whatever from each other. But you know, Horizon Shores is an area that we look at that it might be really cool. Love the project. I just, even with the grant, I just don't know that we can pull from our priority. So, if you, before we vote on that, I want Mike and Steve to present on the spend plan so that they have so you have an idea of what is on there and what money we have for 2023, which is when they would like us to do this grant. So why don't we jump into the spend plan now?
Okay. All right, the 2023 spend plan. The park amenities part of this, we are thinking about doing another hockey rink, paving it. We did Ridgewood last year, and I think everybody really liked it. The kids in the neighborhood, stuff that they could do in the summer on the rink itself. So we're looking at doing another one, maybe Hansman. We've talked to maybe Riverview. We're not really sure on which one we're going to do yet, but it'll be one of those. Picnic shelters. We are gonna, Arrowhead has an old shelter. We want to replace that one. And then Village Green 6 has never had one. It's a newer park, so that'll be on the list. Pickleball, which has become really big in the area in the last 3 to 5 years. We're going to convert Hansman's tennis court into 4 pickleball courts. We did Horizon here about 2 years ago, and it turned out real well. We did Alm last year. That turned out really well, so we're going to go to Hansman next. On that same thing, Village Green, tennis courts, we're going to just resurface that court and keep it tennis. So it's just going to get a new resurfacing, so that will get done. Security lights, Johnson Farms around the playground area there, and Village Green 6 around the whole park. Have some lights out there. Then we want to renovate Woodlawn Disc Golf. Last year we got the T signs up. That was done by an Eagle Scout project late last summer, so we want to do a few more improvements out there to the basket areas if we could. Non-park amenities, we have every year at capital improvements, we have $80,000 set aside for playgrounds. For this year, we want to set it aside for the inclusive playground. Some more picnic shelters. We have another capital improvements, $50,000. We want to. We're looking at Village Green East and or Northeast, which has an old shelter we want to replace. Hampton Park, that's a new area out there, a lot of new houses. Right now, it just has a playground out there and a soccer net. So we're looking at, with the park dedication funds, building a picnic shelter and a swing set area for them. And then the Brentwood Park, which is up in Oakport. When I first started this job, I didn't know where it was either, but it's hidden in Oakport. We want to replace that basketball court. It's an old one, and we're going to replace that too. And that's what we're trying to do this summer. Any questions?
So the question would be, with the 150 that's needed for the fitness court, we would have to pull it from the bottom section of this. So we'd be looking for 2 votes, one on a recommendation on the fitness court, and then the second one on the spend plan.
Remind me what the fitness court is again. I didn't bring my paper because I thought it'd be on the screen here. What would that look like again, and what would that be used? What it look like?
Can you pull that up, Christina, on your screen? It's really a self-exercise center. I think it was
Holly, do they have these other places, and how are they being used, or is it something that is used for a while and then not
There's
used?
one in Fergus Falls, and I've seen one. There's one at a new park on 17th Street in West Fargo, and that's on a trek that I go to my sister's house, and when I go there, I tried to see if anybody's ever on it, and I haven't seen anybody on it. But it is that new park right on 17th behind Home Depot there on the way in West Fargo. I've talked to them, and they don't do numbers at their park, so they don't really know. The next attachment it's a PowerPoint or
Is it a grant that could be
it's the other
not
one.
done this year, but another year, or is it timely and has to be done now, or?
Well, they feel like our best chance is this year, but we could look at it for next year. You've got the picture up now of if you flip through that slideshow, Christina, it'll show the artwork on the back.
David?
Larry, sorry.
No, that's fine. I remember to say, I got a big no here. This reminds me of years back when, and I can't remember the name of them, but the park horse or some deal, you'd run for a little bit, and then you do sit-ups, then you run a little bit longer, and you do pull-ups. Well, if any city ever put them in, they're all being, they're going disrepair and they're taken out. This is what this reminds me of. It's like, I'm not going to drive to go do pull-ups somewhere, I mean, they're very neat looking.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, give me an extra 100,000, I'm going to say, let's renovate wading pools. So I'm not in favor of this at all, so.
I'm concur, a struggle with taking away from the other priorities that we have for improvement and enhancement, speaking to David's point earlier about what we, focusing on what we have already prioritized. I would support potentially a 2024 capital campaign, if it's vetted and we have that proper conversation, but.
Yeah, I personally think if it was next to like the middle school or something, then like use it as for gym and those kind of things, I think it'd be a great activity for outside, but just in a generic park, I think it'd be not a real useful. I think the school would be a great idea for them. Any other, I guess I need a motion for the first part then for this. Without a motion? Well, if you don't get a motion, it dies, right?
Yeah.
Right. So is there a motion to either accept or not to proceed with F or NFC Fitness Court. Is there a motion?
Think you don't need anything. You just go on to the next motion. If nothing happens, you don't make a motion, nobody moves to approve it, it just dies and goes on. You go on.
Right, just asking. If nobody does, then we just go on. So no motion? All right. Then we'll move on to the capital plan, approval of the capital plan for 2023, which Mike just reviewed with us. Do we need a motion for that, or has it already been approved since we already went through that like months ago?
It would be nice to approve.
Okay.
And there can be emergencies that come up, but we would make sure and tell you guys about it. But it would be nice to approve that this is the direction you're okay with, that we're going.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the proposed 2023 capital spend plan.
Thank you, Lindsay. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Valerie. Any other discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the motion for the approval of the capital spend plan of 2023, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, letter E, approval or procedure, I should say, of the craft beer vendor community festivals for Holly, please.
This is pretty straightforward. We did find out when we did our research on alcohol that we are allowed to have craft beer vendors at community festivals ran by the city and so forth. And so I put a procedure together. I don't know if you guys want to do more review or if you're okay to approve it. But I think the real discussion point here is at River Arts, say, for example, we have always discouraged having alcohol at city parks functions when the city is sponsoring them, but feel like maybe we're taking those choices away from parents and so forth. So I would open it up, but we're recommending at this point a motion to approve one vendor of a local craft beer at each one, or at some, allowing that to open or to happen.
How would you decide who that crafts brewery would be?
You know, we thought we would rotate it around between our local craft, you know, between Junkyard Heralds, the ones that I mentioned in the memo of the Swing Barrel, and just kind of give everybody a chance. It would be Moorhead only licensed.
Well, I move to approve this wonderful idea. I move to approve the work that you've done to create the approval of the craft beers at our special events.
This is Lindsay, and I second. Yeah.
Any discussion?
Just one vendor at a time, can't have two.
We thought we'd start out small.
Well, if we get samples of the apples and pears, I believe we should get samples of this as well, right?
Yeah.
Before, so sure.
That motion.
Yeah. I think one is good, though, because I think, you know, you don't want to have a lot of people setting up their time and then have the competition of I think that's a good way to start.
We did something similar at a Frostival event when the Moorhead Business Association ran it and had Swing Barrel at the Stomping event, and it was kind of fun, and there was lots of families and lots of kids, and you go down to Broadway Square and all the other, to the Lights District, and people are still having kids. You know, I don't think anybody is coming there to pound 5 Bud Lights, you know, it's different. Yes. So.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving to allow craft beer vendor at the community festivals, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 7, information updates. Are there any questions or anything you'd have on the items A through H?
Any updates on on D, Reimagine Romkey?
That is the one that I was going to bring up. So we have a graphic for you there of the pool building. And also, there are a number of changes since you folks have seen it last to the site plan. Those changes are taking out what used to be a parking lot. They are a little bit smaller skate park. There was a parking lot in the middle. We were just absolutely wanted to stay within our $10 million number. And with building costs the way they were, the building cost was higher than what we originally anticipated. So we had to cut back on a number of things. The skate park or the splash pad, we need to raise the money for, and we eliminated the parking lot, or the two really significant elements that were removed from the plan. We still have the splash pad in the plan. We just think that we can maybe get somebody that would donate some money towards that. So it's the parking lot that we took out of the middle, which doesn't allow for that kind of festival pull-in kind of area that we were hoping to do farmers market, but maybe they can carry it from the car or other parking spots. The grant is final. It went into the DNR. They still have final look. We should hear in September, but every week we're still working on a few things. Today we found out that we need to do a full historical phase 1 evaluation for historical significance before they will look at our grant. So once again, we will be spending some money to get somebody to do that level of survey. It's usually done by an archaeologist. We thought we would have to do that step after we got the grant, but we're told today it has to be done prior to consideration. So I called the archaeologist today to find out the timeline and the cost, and so a full environmental review had to also be done. That was $12,000 to determine effects on the environment. And really what we're doing is replacing things, so it all gets frustrating, but they want to make sure that they don't give us money to build something that doesn't work for the environment or along the river, we have had different changes in our plans because of historic preservation, because of digs and artifacts and so forth. So, we can't build along the river corridor at all because it's a registered historic site by Viking ship here. So they shut off any kind of building down here, but we don't think that's probably going to be the case with Romkey, but I guess you never know. They want the review prior to looking at the grant.
What was the size of the grant that you wrote, Holly?
10 million.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions about D or any other items on that? Oh, letter F for volunteers program overview. Is that volunteers for, what kind of volunteers would that be for?
Citywide, not the police department or the fire, anything in those departments, but it's for Reforest, the Red, all the programs that are on the next corresponding sheets. The Yum comes, whatever volunteerism we have here, Reforest, projects with river keepers along the Red, litter pickup, those kinds of things citywide, plus our baseball coaches and so forth. I think there's a sheet.
Any other questions? All right, without that, I believe we're on item 8 for adjournment. And do we need a motion for that, or do we just adjourn?
We should have a motion.
We should have a motion to adjourn. Anyone willing to do that? Larry? Larry.
Second.
Thank you.
Lindsay.
Thank you, everybody.
Motion.
And thanks, Crystal, for the good presentation. I learned a lot.
Good information tonight.
Yes, thank you.